I'm good. How's
Good
everyone
morning.
doing? Hi,
Yeah, I'm
Liza.
good. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll talk, Ola, for sure. Um, Just
Okay,
I'll
so
introduce myself.
I think you can just introduce yourself a bit and then we'll go ahead from there.
Okay, sure. Hi everyone. My name is Opeyemi. I'm a partner at Lane, and yeah, I think that's pretty much me. I also lead the LAM program. I also led the LAM program, I think, last year. Pretty much versed in the MBA process, I guess, to an extent, and then I'll just kind of be here to kind of answer questions that you might have. Also give like insights into the process.
All right. Yeah, so I'll just ask you questions, right? Then we can just use that process. Okay, so thank you once again. So the first thing, what would you say is the first step to take if you're trying to get an MBA?
I think the first step is typically, I think, like Olan was saying, research. But even before doing research, I think the first step is kind of like take stock of where you are at. Really like look inwards and ask yourself if the MBA is kind of the right next steps for you. And that's you really asking yourself, where do I want to go and where do I see myself? Whether in the next 5 years, in the next 20 years, and if the MBA is the right tool to kind of get you there. That's really the first step.
Yeah.
After making taking that stock of where you are at and where you want to go, then comes research and like every other thing, right? So looking at different schools, looking at their requirements. So like Oladimiji said, depending on where you want to go, some schools might be stronger in getting you there than others as well. Also depending on your particular, I would say, needs or preferences in terms of what you're looking at getting from an MBA, might also factor into that decision. Are you looking for significant funding? Is prestige important to you? Is good alumni network important to you? Are you looking for a large class size? Are you looking for a small class size? Do you want to be in a big city? Do you want to be in a university city? What life are you looking at for the next, 2 years, 1 year? Do you want a 1 year program? Do you want a 2 year program? That's also a question, right? Do you want to be in Europe? Do you want to be in North America? Those are questions you need to ask yourself. And just based off of that, shortlist schools that you think are interesting to you. Also, after speaking to people, so people at the school as well, people in the MBA community in general. Then typically next step is usually the tests. And you might do the test while you're researching, you might do the test after researching, or you might not even need a test at all if the schools you selected kind of have waiver programs, right? Then you do the test. Next is essay writing. As regards essay writing, that's usually I think the test and essay writing are usually the most significant or the hardest part of the entire thing.
You said the
because for
essay writing?
Test and essay writing are usually the most difficult parts of the application. One, because people are not, standardized tests. People are not used to taking standardized tests, especially in this part of the world. We are not used to taking standardized tests. So really ramping up and, I think getting insights and getting the tools to excel on standardized tests is something that people kind of have to navigate. And often people have to take those tests 2-3 times. Some people 5 times as well. In terms of the essays, essays are tricky because you have to customize your essays to each school. Every school has their different essay questions, and you cannot use the same. You can't use the same essays across different schools. There might be similar context, but then depending on the questions you are asked, you need to refine. Also, when the school is asking specifically how this school is going to help you achieve your goals, then you need to that is really reliant on the resources at the school specifically. Those type of essays you can't replicate across board. So this way your research comes into play, your discussions with students, also having other people who are going to read your essays and refine them for you. Students at schools, alumni as well. There's recommendation bits which normally for recommendations, you are not supposed to write your recommendations. You're supposed to, you know, find recommenders who are going to write recommendations for you. And that can be significant as well. Because, for instance, there are people who are working jobs where they don't want to mention to their manager to write recommendations for them. Because MBA programs usually require that your current supervisor writes the recommendation on your behalf, right?
Yeah.
Although they give caveats where in some cases you are able to kind of have another person write a recommendation for you. But making that decision is, something that you have to be very careful in how you go about it. In choosing someone who can, replicate that, I'll say, that position, someone who has probably led you before, probably a former supervisor. And people usually don't like listening to their current supervisor, for instance, maybe they're up for a promotion at work and they don't want to get in the way of that. Or their supervisor doesn't know they are leaving, or maybe they don't trust their recommender to actually write a good reference for them, right?
Yeah.
So there are several reasons why you might choose not to have your current supervisor. And really thinking through who is the best person to, put me forward is significant. And also you need to kind of prime your recommenders as well, because you need to explain to them how you're positioning yourself for the school and what they need to, how they should think about writing their recommendations. Also, giving in mind that, I think working, people always say that you're not top of mind for many people, right? So you also need to kind of remind them of context or situations in which you've kind of achieved impact so that they can recall those situations easily. So priming your recommenders also on that part of the entire process you need to think about, right? And then there's filling the application form in itself, because the forms are usually like bulky and can take maybe a couple of days to fill. Because apart from the essays, they're like small, short sentences here and there, writing about your experience, like your job responsibilities and all those parts of the functions you need to fill. Getting your transcripts, also, all those other administrative tasks are also important. An MBA application in itself is very holistic in the way it's approached. And one part does not necessarily trump another. I need to make sure that everything's kind of strong all around. And that's essentially the entire process from start to finish. Start to finish for the application stage. I mean, there's also the next step like interviews, where you need to prep for interviews, have interviews with with the schools, then getting your offer, accepting up until getting your visa and all of that. Everything is still part of the process in general. We're happy to kind of dive into anyone you think you would like to explore more.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Yes, so just to dive deeper, like you said, right? You mentioned networking with current students, with alumni, or even at home. So how do people actually find those to network with? How do they go about that?
Okay. I think that's actually a very interesting question. So I'll say networking, I think there are four main ways of networking in general.
Okay.
And so there are four main ways of networking. First of all, is more school-led events. So typically schools have webinars or physical events that you can attend. Here you meet most likely adcoms for sure. You might also meet current students or alumni, depending on what the event is centered around, right? And those are usually more formal. You have a group of people having a call with these people. So depending on, it could be anything from like coffee chats where you have 5 or 6 to like full-on webinars or events where there are over like 200 people and everybody's trying to get FaceTime with the AdCom members, right? So school-led events, one. Secondly, most schools have like admissions fellows or admissions ambassadors, which are current students in the school who have volunteered to help admissions and be the face of the school. So depending on where your interests lie, whether that's like your post MBA goals, your current MBA goals, your post MBA career goals, your current career, affinity groups, or also so I think so I said post MBA career goals, current goal, current career, affinity groups, or maybe specific interests, right? You might find people who align with you and you might want to speak to them, right?
Yeah.
And typically on the website, you kind of find those fellows and you're able to reach out to them through the school's website. That's the second means. Third means would be more general MBA events. These are not specifically school-led, but like, more general. So, for instance, the events that Lane runs, we run some events that are really powered by Lane, but like also be on the school's website. So it can be a school event, it can be also like, general. So there's Lane, there is also MBA tour, right?
Yeah.
Which is also across Africa. Those are also like programs where you can network with outcomes, current students as well, right? Or alums, depending on who the outcome decides to bring with them. And then the last is social media. And by social media, I mean LinkedIn, right? So you can go on LinkedIn and find people at those schools, students, alumni, and just, reach out and be like, oh, hi, I'm looking to connect. I'm looking to apply to your school. So if you're interested in this and that, want to speak to you about this. If you have like 15 minutes, can you jump on a call? Maybe message like 10, 15, 20 people, at least like 5 of them will respond, five out of 15 response like 1/3. So I usually recommend like just vesting like 20 people in the school, and you get like 5 people responding, and you can speak to them, and you can ask them to connect you with other people from the school as well. So that's pretty much how networking goes. Also at events, you can decide to connect with the speakers afterwards, and just from there, essentially.
Many of the speakers actually drop their emails for follow up and all. Okay, yes, that's a great one. And then you also talked about recommendation, right? So my question is, what if I want my supervisor from my undergraduate program to give me a recommendation, right? I had my undergrad maybe 4 years ago, but he supervised me on a project, right? So would you say that's a good recommendation to put in, or what would you say about that?
So I think in terms of recommendations, you want to defer to what the school asks for. Based on my knowledge, most schools ask specifically for a recommender in a professional setting. And specifically, they also really prefer you get your current supervisor to write recommendation for you. Now, there are caveats in which your current supervisor might be able to write, which I mentioned earlier, right? But still, they want a professional recommendation most of the time. Now, in a case where the school asks for 2 recommendations, right, and they say one should be professional, in that second case, you might consider your maybe undergraduate supervisor, but the question really is, what is this person speaking to? That's the real question to ask yourself. Can this person speak to my career progress? Can this person speak to my interests? Can this person speak to my strengths? The MBA degree, in as much as it's academic, it's a professional degree, and they are really looking to judge your leadership skills alongside your analytical aptitude. The analytical aptitude can be gotten from your test scores from your undergraduate degree, but your leadership skills, on the other hand, and your leadership skills as well as your career progression is really dependent on like professional context more than academic context. So, so that's where you need to kind of, draw the line. Did you do something significant in your uni that you think is important to mention in your case that makes you stand out from the crowd? But then also, if you've worked 4 or 5 years out of uni, then is that really pertinent as to the present? Now, does that give an insight into your current leadership potential? That's a question to answer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's a great one. So basically, you have to consider all of these things, like you mentioned, before you decide on who should actually send you recommendation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So next, I would like you to touch on the difference between each application round, right? We have some schools have the early, what's it called? The early round, that's before round 1, right? Some schools have up to 4 rounds, even 5 rounds, maybe for a few. So just touch on what's the difference between each of these rounds. What would you recommend in terms of when to apply? And basically that.
Okay, great. So let's start with early action. I will talk about early action, but let me go into the schools that have 4 rounds or 5 rounds first, and how that came about. So historically, the MBA has 3 rounds: 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Those round 4 round 5 came about during COVID, right? When applications really went down because, there was a downturn. People were really focused on getting their jobs, don't really traveling. So applications really went down. So they created more rounds to kind of get people to apply.
Like,
On the other hand, it was also afterwards, I think 2 years, no, the year after, when there was a kind of like a downturn in the tech industry. There's downturn in the tech industry, and a lot of people were getting out of jobs. So people were thinking of jumping into MBA programs to not necessarily kill that time, but transition into new roles and or like not have a gap on their CV, just have something else. You get.
yeah.
So the school saw it as an opportunity as well to kind of get some of these folks in. So they created additional rounds for people to apply. That's where those rounds came from. Now speaking specifically to like the rounds, so the question, do I think that round 4, round 5 would stick? I'm not sure. It's a recent thing, so we still need to see what that looks like over the next 5 years, right? Now,
Okay.
early action depends per school. There are two types of early action. There is there's what they call the early action where you commit to the school, and the early action where you don't commit to the school. So I've forgotten the actual term for it. But early action where you commit to the school is like you're telling the school that, oh, you guys are my number one choice. If you admit me into the school, I would drop out all my other applications, and this is who you want to go to. The other early action where you are not committing is like they will consider you as if you are applying as you're applying round 1. You understand? Now, saying you're committed to the school kind of gives you a little bit of not necessarily an edge, but it makes the outcomes consider you in maybe a minor better way, because like, okay, this person is going to commit, like this person is going to improve my yield, right? So they might look at your application a little bit more favorably because you're going to commit. There's no risk to them. There's no risk of you
rejecting.
Exactly. But the other one is just regular. Round 1 and round 2 are typically your regular applications, and then when you start going to round 3 for most schools, round 3 is the class is almost full, right? The schools that have like 4 and 5, I think round 3 is still bearable. But once you get to round 4, the class is almost full, and they're taking less from that point. So that's the kind of thing about it. Now, also to caveat, some schools only have 2 rounds. Like Harvard only has 2 rounds, round 1 and round 2. So that's that thing to note. So really look at the school you're applying to and see what their rounds look like. So now, what rounds do you apply in? The rule of thumb is applying in the round where your application is the strongest. And by that I mean, if at round 1 you are ready, the only thing you're doing is maybe changing a few words in your essays here and there to make it like if it's just a few changes of words here and there, then you're actually ready to submit. But if you're if you're getting advice to like overhaul your essays or redo your test score, and you don't think you can improve those test score, then you should not be applying in that round. You should wait till the next round, right? That's what we kind of consider. Also, in terms of applying to rounds, we usually recommend applying to the first 2 rounds, round 1, round 2, because there's still a lot of space in the class. By round 3 is more difficult to get in, and funding is significantly reduced as well. But ultimately, applying the application is strongest for sure. If you want to do early action, feel free to go ahead. But if your application is not ready by early action, submitting a substandard application is not going to get you in, even if you say that you are going to commit to the school.
Yeah. All right. That's great. So basically, for most schools, right, the number of slots reduces by the rounds and also funding. So it's just better if your application is ready to apply earlier. All right. Yeah, so that's great. Another question, I would like you to touch on the standardized test score, right? Is it a great idea? Because I know there are some schools that give the test waiver. Is it a great idea to get the waiver, and how do you think it actually impacts your application? And also, if you decide to, so 2 questions, maybe you should go ahead with that first.
No, sorry, I'm listening. What was the second one?
Okay, so if you go ahead to write the test, how do you actually decide on what test to take?
Okay, so 2 questions I hear is, first of all, should you use waivers? And then secondly, deciding between GRE and GMAT
Yes.
or EA, depending on
Yeah.
the case might be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first question, should you use a waiver? I think it depends heavily. It really depends on your specific background. The GRE or GMAT is kind of a way to one. I'll say it's one of the it's one of the criteria they kind of use to judge you or to compare you against other candidates, right? It's like one metric, one of the metrics I use. The MBA application is a holistic application, right? So
Mm-hmm.
taking a waiver means that they have that less, they have one less thing to look at in your application to get the full picture of who you are. The question is, would not having this waiver or would not having this metric affect your application adversely? That's the question here. So, say you did a highly quantitative course, like you studied engineering, business, economics, very, very quantitative, right? And you had a very good grade, like first class 2-1,
Mm-hmm.
learning was first class, right? And you've been working in business for the past 5 years, like, and you've been making strides, highly quantitative roles, right?
Yeah.
Not having a GRE or GMAT would not necessarily affect you because there are things in your application that speak to your ability to handle the quantitative rigor of the program,
Yeah.
right? Now, for the case where your undergrad degree is not as strong, you studied the humanities,
Mm-hmm.
um, you've not worked in quantitative roles over your past career, you've been working in more, literary roles, then requesting a waiver in that case would not necessarily be, it might not be the best thing for you to do. And also, schools also have criteria for which they give these waivers, right? Which actually is what I'm speaking to at this point. They might even reject your request for a waiver because they feel like it's pertinent for them to view that score to really ascertain what your profile looks like. There are also some contexts that the waiver fits or the GRE and GMAT fits into your scholarship, which might be or might not be true. I've seen people who applied waivers who got significant funding from their schools. I've seen cases otherwise. I think it's your application by itself without a GRE and GMAT stellar. Like if you have like a first class in business, in accounting, in engineering, by all means request a waiver if you think that you need one. You understand? But then if you know that your degree wasn't, all of that, and you don't have like any business knowledge that you can show for like quantitative rigor, then go ahead and write GRE and GMAT. Now the second question was how should you choose between GRE and GMAT? GRE and GMAT. Here it really depends on what GRE, GMAT, and I think executive assessment. Let me not forget the third one. I think some other schools also have like some additional tests they accept. So here it's really dependent on what exam suits you the most. Recognition usually take a practice test for each of the standardized tests, and then see which one you are more comfortable with, which one you feel like you can ramp up faster on, and stick to that one essentially. There's I'll just say that they don't really have a preference between each one, the GRE or the GMAT. There's no preference. However, just historically, more people have applied with GMAT, so you tend to see like 60 to 70% of the class writing a GMAT, and the other percent are writing a GRE. But it's just because most people apply with a GMAT, not necessarily because they prefer one to the other. Exactly. So stick to one where you feel like you can score the best. because that's what
Yeah, so after
help your
taking,
application.
all right. So after taking the practice test, just take maybe 1 or 2 for both, then you can make your decision, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to ask about, so you mentioned some schools might not even accept your request for a waiver if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have that background, that quantitative background, right? So what if you don't have a great quantitative background, but you still got the waiver? So does getting the waiver automatically mean that you're good on that end? Or
I think schools are very careful with how they give out those waivers. So
okay.
I've not really seen a case where people who don't have strong quantitative backgrounds get the waiver. I haven't seen it
Mm,
actually, because they are
okay.
very careful with how they give the waivers out. Um, However, if you don't have a strong quantitative background and you get the waiver,
Mm-hmm.
I might still advise you to write it. Because in itself it's kind of preparation for like the MBA program in itself, because the MBA program is also very quantitative driven. So you
Yeah.
kind of have a sense of what it is like to be back in school and doing maths on a daily basis. Uh, it's one less factor they will consider for um, for scholarships and for funding, but then it puts a lot of emphasis on the other parts of your application, which means that the other parts of your application is going to be like significantly scrutinized.
Yeah.
So it's just something for you to consider.
Okay. All right. Got that. Yes. So sorry, just a little bit. So okay. So about the tests, right? Again, can you just touch on the GRE at home test or the GMAT at home test, and also taking it at the center? Do you think some
Mm.
schools have biases against both? Do they even know whether you wrote it at home or at the center? What do you think about that? Because we've been hearing a lot of.
In terms of writing at home or at the center, I think this is a very touchy topic, right?
Mm,
In recent times, I think two things have affected the at-home tests. One is cancellation of scores, and the second is also reliability of those scores by schools. So when it comes to the test scores for writing at home, there are certain rules around writing at home in terms of like disturbances, being in a quiet room, having nobody in the room, having nothing in the space of the room. Like you have to take out all your pictures, take out everything on the walls,
oh,
just having like a paper and your pen or like a board, and you have to kind of show as you're computing, like you need to show the proctor how you're computing and things like that, right? That just make the test a little bit, or the GRE at home a little bit like more, like I'll say, restricted in the way you go about it. Because of that, like people have had their scores cancelled because maybe one thing happened during the test, and for a period of time, the proctor couldn't see you or couldn't see what you were doing. That affects, or there was a noise or something, right?
mm-hmm.
That had people's tests cancelled. Also, internet connection problems. That's another issue you need to worry about, because this is like if you're writing from West Africa, writing from Africa, issues with internet connection, right?
Yeah.
Um, now, now, also more recently, schools have also been tending to prefer tester centers because of similar issues, like concerns around reliability of scores from their home tests. So seems like the default or the de facto is kind of like to write at test centers just because you're sure that nothing's going to happen to your score and there's no consent from admissions officers as regards. Um, so de facto seems to be to write at the test center just so you're sure nothing happened to your score.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened to your score. Also that everything kind of goes as planned. Is there issue with the test center operators know how to handle it and how to give like extra time for any issues
Yeah.
that may arise. Like you have their rules around that for sure. So yeah, that's pretty much it on that.
All right. Thank you for touching on that. So the next thing, right? I want to ask about how can people get application fee waivers, right? And is
Okay.
it advisable to get fee waivers? Does it affect the application in any way? And yeah, just touch on that brief.
For fees, I don't think application fees affect the process, honestly speaking. Um,
Okay.
if you can get a fee waiver, please get one because it's just less money to spend. And the entire MBA process is very cost intensive, meaning the
Yeah.
application fees are just the beginning. Once you get in, you have to worry about your commitment fee. Then you need to worry
Mm-hmm.
about visa fees, flying fees, fees for everything, the cost of attendance, also like cost for joining clubs in school. Like there are so many fees, so much money to spend. So if you can get an additional fee waiver, please get.
Please do.
I don't think it affects the process in any way.
Okay.
I don't think it does. The fee needs to be paid for your application to be considered. I'm not sure if the admission office even sees whether you paid a fee or not. I'm not sure they even see that. Honestly speaking. Because
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
when you download the application pack from the site, I don't think it references a payment or a
Okay.
non-payment. Yeah, it's just that if that fee is not settled, then your application doesn't go to the committee to read. That, that's the only thing. Um,
Yeah.
so that's fee
All
waivers.
right.
There are many ways of getting fee waivers, and it's really school dependent. So you need to research each school to figure out how they give waivers, right?
Yeah.
So, for
Yeah.
instance, if you want a waiver to say a school like Kellogg, you can't. There's criteria for specific people that they have that they give waivers. I'm not sure coming from Africa is one of them, but you can get a free waiver for Kellogg by like joining some organizations like Jumpstart, right? So if you attended Kellogg sessions on Jumpstart, then you're going to get a free waiver for Kellogg. Some schools like Duke, if you join, I think one of their diversity events, you get a fee waiver.
Yeah.
That gives to any student who is a citizen of Africa and has a your residential address is Africa, and so you get the fee waiver. Some schools you have to request directly from the admissions committee, and they will tell you, or we give under the circumstances, which can be maybe funding, low income, veterans, which are like military personnel, um, for certain like groups of people as well. So it's really school dependent. Like doing a lot of research and just asking people will get you far in terms of waivers. Also, I think attending some sessions like lane sessions, just to highlight, we try to negotiate
Yeah.
for for waivers for people
Maybe.
applying from lane from admission officers. So if you attend a lane session, most likely you get
Mm-hmm.
like waivers for these schools.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks for mentioning that. All right. So we've talked about the whole process, right, up to the point of submitting your application, right?
Mhm.
If you get a waiver, just go ahead, submit when you are ready, like we already said. So, what's the process like after you submit? Um,
Mm.
how long does it take to receive a response? When you get an interview invite, what am I supposed to do, right? And then just the process from then on, interviewing. What's the next thing after that? Up to actually applying for visa. What's required? Just give tips up to the point of actually resuming to school.
Okay, so I think like I'll give advice up until like getting to I'll say advice after submitting and then up to like getting your admissions offer, right? Reason being that
Okay.
after you like get your offer, the other
Mm-hmm.
part of the process is really dependent on you. your financial capacity, and
Yeah.
also like there are many other factors that come into play afterwards. That I think my advice is if you're as you're going on this MBA journey, see take it one step at a time because at every point you meet obstacles, at every point you get new information, and you need to kind of like make your decision based off of that going forward. But like I'll give up
Yeah.
until getting the offer.
Okay.
When you get the offer, we can talk like in we can talk
The link.
one on one after that. Yeah. But starting with so once you like apply, once you apply to school, next step is the interview, right? Now this is tricky because some schools interview everybody, like Kellogg. Kellogg interviews every single person. So if you apply to Kellogg, then you need to start preparing for your interview immediately because you're going to get called for an interview, most likely. You get
Okay.
some schools on the other hand, they pick people they're going to interview based on the initial review of their application, right? And that's left and right. So in each case, either way, I think you need to start preparing interviews. Like at least have your high level stories written down. Like
Yeah.
your leadership stories, your conflict stories, handling conflict at work stories, your taking initiative stories, your ambition stories, your post MD goals, like what you wrote in your application, be able to verbalize it and make it come to life in person. You understand?
Yeah.
Why the school, what is important in the school that you're looking at, the school's resources that you find interesting, maybe what you like about the city, if there are professors in mind that you really want to learn from, um, just you as a person in general, even outside like work and life, right? What are your other hobbies? What are the clubs you hope to join? You should have all those. You should start preparing for those high level because, especially because some schools like have like very fast turnarounds for their interviews. Like if you get like an interview from maybe um some schools like you can get interviewed in like 2 weeks from when you get interview call. So you might not have like time to have like multiple mock sessions with people, you
Yeah.
know. So you want to start like having that written down or writing that down after you like submit your applications, just high level, so that if you jump on one or two mocks, you can really ramp that up. But getting an interview call is usually a good sign because it means that school is really considering you. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get in. You could get waitlisted, you could get rejected, but they really want to find out more about you, for sure. So after the way you can kind of prep for mock, you have calls with students from the school, let them do a mock with you, and typically here as well, some schools tell you that you can reach out to like their African Business Club. I think Darden does that, Boots does that as well. Some other schools you might have to reach out to people one on one to help you do interview prep. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Once you get in, then there's school selection among your offers, depending on what case is best for you, and then just application and all of that. But take it one step at a time. So if you're doing the
Yes.
application right now, focus on the application.
Yeah, one step at a time. Okay, so generally, right, what resources would you say is very helpful for MBA applicants generally? So do they need to listen to podcasts? Do they need to join a particular, community or sign up on an app or something? So just what resources
Okay.
would you say?
So I think first of all, to highlight like you're on Lane right now. So joining Lane is the first resource I will mention. We have a number of resources. We have things like a CV template if you're looking to write your CV. I forgot to mention CV writing for like the applications, right? We have a CV template for you to write your CV. We have a podcast if you want like bite-sized information, 15 minutes on the go. You can listen to as you are on the road, in transit, maybe doing something else, making your dinner, making breakfast. You can just listen and get insights on next of your application. We also have webinars that we organize with admission officers, current students, alums to speak about the application process. There's also LAMP where we pair you with one-on-one with a mentor who's a current student or alum to help you with your application process as well. So yeah, like the number of resources in Lane. Are there any resources that you should think about joining? Um, I think Jumpstart is good, just because they have access to like waivers as well to an extent. Um, access is another good one for
Mm-hmm.
sure. And then I think if you are like you identify as a woman, then you should apply to Forte as well, because there are a number of resources there that also help, and access that also gives you a bit of access, like that also gives you access to like funding to an extent when you get into the MBA program. So those are the ones I have like at the top of my head. Um, yeah, you should
Okay.
also follow some things like quick and quants, because you might just get info on what's going on in the MBA world in general, and it's good to kind of
Which
have
one
that
did you
in the
mention?
back of your hand.
Which
You
one?
said
I
quants
didn't.
and quants.
Okay, okay, okay.
Quants and quants. It's good to kind of have information on what's going on generally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also follow like
Okay.
blogs of different schools, because that can help you to
Mm-hmm.
like understand the school better.
Details of what they require, right? So another one I
Not
can
necessarily what they require. So like blogs of schools, basically what they post mostly in blogs of schools is more students posting about their experience in the school. Um, that might just give you more insights into this school in particular, as
mm-hmm.
opposed to what they require. Just like more of what you would expect to experience. I think that's
Okay.
like, yeah.
All right, great. Um, okay. So how about GMAT Club? Would you recommend GMAT Club, Clear Admit?
Those ones. My experience with Clear Admit and GMAT Club is more fine. You might join and ask questions, and you might get good answers. But my experience
Mm-hmm.
mostly is like when it's time for like deadlines, that's when those could come to life. Especially because like deadlines for like receiving interviews. So not
Yeah.
receiving interviews as well as getting decisions. That's when those groups come to life, because you start seeing people like posting, oh, rejected, admitted, or stuff like that. Okay, also to add, GMAT Club actually organizes some webinars with admission officers as well as admissions consultants that might be helpful. So yeah, GMAT Club more than Clear Admit that. So
Okay. All right. And like you said, maybe it's good to just get real time knowledge of what other candidates, other applicants are. They're receiving decisions already and things like that. Yeah. So
yeah, that's good for the context there.
yeah. Thank you very much. So if you have questions, please just drop them in the comments. So if you're following us and you have questions, kindly drop in the comments. We'll be taking questions now. Hi,
Alright.
Oladimeji.
Hello. Hi, guys. Apologies for the other time.
Yeah, it's
Hi,
fine. No problem.
that's all. Maybe how
Hello.
is Charlotte here?
Very, very good and rough, actually. Like, just in the middle of getting things and setting up my apartment and stuff, right? So, yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
so it's good to have you, Oladimeji. So I have a few questions, right, about your journey as someone who benefited from Lane, right? So can you just share, um, some of the benefits you received? How was Lane helpful for you and impactful? How it helped you in your journey, basically? Or just
Yeah.
talk about your
So,
journey.
right. So, I think for me, it's about having the personal connection and actually being personal with your mentor. So, I figured for the Lane Fellowship, the mentor-mentee relationship was actually very, very important. Right? So because you literally decide just how much you get out of the mentorship, right? So your mentor, has just little to no power as to how you want the you want the mentorship program to go. but you have questions, you have, doubt, you have things you actually need help with, that your mentor can step in and even connect you with other people in events that they have no answers to your questions, right? So that was my experience, at least. Aki was my mentor, amazing guy. So, and he actually took time off work and he helped me a lot with essay reviews, with interview prep. I think we had a visa interview prep session once. Yeah, so I'm not so sure if the fellowship is open for a class of 27. If you have the answer.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
so
didn't get that.
the way we're doing this here is the way we're doing this is if I got that, what we're doing this here is more, we don't have a separate LAMP application. We have like
Oh,
a call for the entire class 26, and then we're reviewing everybody's details, everybody that says they're applying this year. And then we'll
right.
just pick people from there and kind of put them into the whole LAMP application cycle. We're still doing the whole essay writing thing. But I know I stressed them a lot. I stressed a lot maybe since we had like different sessions about how to write, and also like I think I should review like some of things you guys wrote initially. Yeah,
Right.
but I mean, we're
Yeah,
still doing writing but without the whole writing session thing.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think for you guys not to think, that the essay writings and stuff on Google Form was actually to stress you. Honestly, the way I saw it was to see, if you actually have a skin in the game, because you will be the one driving the conversation with your mentor. So if you are able to put some time behind to actually churn some, essays and actually submit those, what that signals is that you're ready for mentorship and you can actually direct, your mentor to things that you really need help or assistance with. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if you have questions, please just drop it in the comments. Looks like I can't see any questions. Maybe we've touched on all the questions people have. All right, so Oladimeji, so I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, like, what are some of the challenges you faced during the old MBA journey, application journey? Like, if you could
Uh,
mention maybe 2, 3 major challenges, what would those things be?
the first one would be the visa. Honestly, I think it's least spoken about, least discussed, because
Oh,
it's
really?
also interesting. It's like at the end of the MBA spectrum, when you think you're done, hey, we already have admissions, then the visa thing just comes anyway. So yeah, that's
No, but
actually
I
very
don't know.
important.
I feel like, but I want to contextualize that visa thing, right? The truth is this about the visa thing. Yeah, the visa process in itself, like there's something as regards that needs to be spoken about. But I don't necessarily think speaking about it at the initial stage of this entire thing, like really, like I think it dissuades people from going on the journey in itself. I feel like the visa is something that you can cross if you have like the information about it, like certain information about it. But like if you understand, if you really, I feel like knowing what goes on there might dissuade you from even starting in the first place.
I
Mm.
mean, I wouldn't say that. I think it's about, so as the Yoruba they just says, something something can parrot to bagbon. Asotele, yes, ogun asotele can parrot to bagbon, right? So and that is to say that if you know something beforehand, what that does is it helps you prepare. So the reason why I'm putting that as number one is to help people be financially ready. Most people are already spent before they get to that visa stage. And really, you need money for that stage. In the case where you didn't have a good turnout for the Nigerians, so your first appointment didn't go well, you understand that, well, this was something you already prepared for. Then you are, so that's the plan, right? So they are financially prepared for it. It's very important. And also to actually buttress on what you said, I totally agree. Having the right information is very, very crucial, right? Is very, very crucial. So yeah, it's not to discourage anyone, because really this is what everyone who had to go to the US for the MBA had to, overcome. So yeah. So that
Yeah.
would be the first thing. And the second thing would be, of course, networking with different schools. and making a decision to where, as to where to go, right? So that can also be very, very difficult.
Oh,
Um,
really?
so yeah, finding people who would be honest with you, because not many people would be honest as to what the reality is on the ground. So, but just being able to, and the way you're able to do this is sampling. So if you spoke with 20 people, chances that, at least two people will be honest with you, will be a little bit above 50%, right? Then you know what right things to do, right? So that you get into the right program where you're really happy. For example, I'm very happy at Darden,
That's good to
and
hear.
I think we're finding a community here. I know Okpa is also pumped for boots, right? Okpa is super excited about Chicago boots, right? So, yeah, I'm sorry, I could have been Okpa's classmate, but I'm happy at Darden right now. Yeah, so that's the case, right? So it's about discussing with people and really getting a sense to what the community is. Trust me, 2 years is actually very long. People think 2 years is enough to do, some damage to, like mental, emotional health and something, right? So speaking with people, understanding what the community truly is like is very crucial.
Very important. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So another question, right? So during the application process, before the admission, before you receive the admission at all, what are some of the best practices you would say worked for you, like really helped you?
Is this after application or before application?
No, during the application, what are some of the
Oh,
best
during the
practices? Did you
application.
have a full-time job? How did you juggle, like, just
Absolutely, absolutely. It was very tough for me, but time management was actually very, very important. Time management. So I think, at Lane, there were some resources that were shared around. So what most people did was, I wouldn't say most, what some people did was actually to create like some kind of Excel sheet, spreadsheets that help them track the application, right?
yeah,
So you track by the schools you're applying to, the requirements, and all that. So you have different Google documents. If you work with Google Suites, if you use Microsoft Suites, you have Microsoft documents. You're attaching different links to different essays against different schools. So it helps you stay organized. You have the deadlines for different schools. So you will be amazed at how proficient at Excel some people are. And you
yeah.
really need Excel. That's the thing, right? So it helps you stay organized in the middle of work and applying to different schools, meeting different timelines. So that was very helpful. And secondly, it's about understanding what matters to different schools. Because trust me, schools have things, they values, they have values that they actually hold in high regards. And when they assess candidates, some of the schools they're looking for those values. So you want to make sure those values show forth in your essays, in your work experience, in your narrative, right? So you want to make sure that those values are reflected in your narrative, right? So being able to tailor your narrative to different schools is also very crucial.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so those
That's
are.
important. All right. Thanks for that. So I think the last question from me before we respond to any comments on the comment section, right? So if you could do the process all over again, of course you're not doing it all over, but if you could, what would you do differently? What would you say? What would you change or do differently?
For me, is that for me to do something differently right now? I mean, I thought I actually, I thought God helped me, so it was just, I wouldn't want anything different. I had, the admission process was very kind to me, right?
Okay.
And my mentor at Lane, amazing guy. I wouldn't want another mentor, So my narrative that actually shared, I'm like I was vulnerable, so I wouldn't have it differently. And I really wouldn't have anything different because I actually had the admission process was very kind to me. So yeah, I mean,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Maybe
That's good
Octave
to
has,
hear.
some things and all that. Maybe I will do some things differently. But Papa is a master here. He's a master at work. So, you know.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good to hear. Okay, so I know I said finally, but the last question. So since you arrived, right? What's one thing? I know you mentioned that the visa process is not very much talked about. What's one thing that people actually don't talk about that you think should be talked about? Maybe from your experiences after you got there. It could be during the transition period or just anything like that.
Yeah. So one thing for me is how much faith you would need as a candidate, as an international candidate. So what I mean by that, I know for UVA, Darling, how much faith you need. So accommodation situation here is you're applying when you don't have your visa yet. So you don't even know if you get a visa or not, but you have to secure accommodation. And rent is
Mm.
not cheap. Rent is not cheap. You're
That's
dropping at least $1,000, you know.
Can you hear me? Sorry about that
Yes.
again.
Uh,
No worries. I think network is terrible these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where were we? Oh yeah, I think Olamide was talking about the financial considerations of like
yeah.
apartment. Well, did you get furniture before you moved, or you got?
So it depends on the apartment, right? So because there are like a ton of apartments around and stuff, right? Having different lease agreement, types. Some have university housing as furnitures in it, and some other private apartments have furnitures where they can be slightly expensive. But some other apartments where most MBAs stay, you have to like get your furnitures, right? So you know.
Mm.
Yeah, you have to get furniture yourself. Like where I was initially, we went to get a couch, right? So we got a couch, we went there to get a couch. The person said they were leaving ASAP, and I thought it wasn't far off. Apparently it was actually far. So yeah, I'm so sorry, Elliot.
Right.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so we had I think one or two questions in the comment section
Did you get them before
rather.
the live window?
I did not. So I'm so sorry we lost the question. Please can you ask your question again? But I think she was basically asking for a budget, like what would you say is a good budget? Just for this whole MBA process, right?
Ah,
If you were to give an
ah,
amount, a range.
budget. So I think
I
the
think
first step
I
is
think she was
try and get as much application fee waivers as possible. That's the first step.
That's the first thing. Yeah, if like I said, if you can get waivers, please. Trust me, because
by attending events, right? I think Okwe touched on that already.
events,
Attending
there
events,
are certain
different ways.
events you go to. There are certain events you go to where you get waivers. Each school has their own, and you have to know which one it is for each school. Um, like for Kellogg is Jumpstart. For Duke is their diversity events. Darden gives
Yeah.
everybody that's of African origin, and like also has an African residential address they will give you, right? Some schools you request directly to the adcoms. Like you go and beg them that my father does not have money, please give me admission waiver. You get I'm being honest with you, like
Yeah.
that's what you write for some schools. Like you explain your financial situation and tell them that if you pay this money, like it's not going to be smiling. You get some people will tell you, oh, maybe this specific criteria working with like a non-profit or something of that sort. Like
Yeah.
some people give like criteria around people that get waivers. Just for each school, find out. Now,
Just find out. Go to the website.
yeah, find out. Now, the next step after applying is your commitment fee, right? Deposits. Deposits can range anywhere between $1,000 and $6,000.
Oh, wow.
So depending on your school, most schools cover around 2,000, 3,000. Most schools are around that 2,000, 3,000. Some schools are 1,000, and I know one school that's like 6,000. So that range, right? Then accommodation, like you said, you're holding this. That can range anywhere between $800 and $2,000. Maybe even 2,500, say, depending on your taste. Depending on your taste and the city you're going to. Somewhere like Darden is a it's a school city, it's a university city. So you experience like cheaper rents, like 800 to maybe 1,500. But then if you're going to like Columbia, New York, or you're going to Chicago, Boston, then you'll be expecting the rent to be around 1,500 to like 2,500. And that's just rent, right? And you need to pay that upfront. Now, visa fee is like 180 plus 350.
Upfront.
Visa fee is 180. So you need to pay that one upfront. Like it's monthly, but you need to pay upfront holding fee, right? So you pay that from here before you leave to have an apartment. So I'm speaking to the money that you need to have paid here before you leave, right? That's what I'm talking so far. For visa fees, I think it's 180 plus 350, right? And that's if you're interviewing just once. If you interview multiple times, you're adding 180 for each time. Like, and that one is for each time you're interviewing. Then what else is there? Your flight tickets, which is like under $2,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ola.
I mean, it's fallen. It's fallen.
It's fallen now towards 1,816.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's on that flight, right? Then you need to hold money when you are going there because you are not going to get access to your funds immediately. Yeah. Right. So you need to also hold money. I would recommend holding like 1K. Just having that with you before you get access to like your funds.
Okay.
Yeah. So all in all, I don't know, anywhere between 10 and 15.
Yeah.
Right.
Anywhere between 10 and 15. Like you should just have that.
Okay. And of course that's aside your school fees and things like that. Depending on
this is just like settling into the US. This has nothing to do with your school fees or even your monthly bills. This is just settling into the US. Like the entire application process up until getting to the US and settling in before you access whatever funds you have for your degree and your stay.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
And I also wanted to add, like Hope shared and fair, right? It's not to discourage anyone, because sometimes when you just get reviewed like the sum, you feel so discouraged, like, oh my God, this is so much of a huge expense, and I don't want to do it. There's also a thing about sunk cost, so you should always think about like an economics. But I think being strategic and understanding that the MBA application process is a team sport is very crucial. So you need people, you'd have people who have some information that you could also benefit from. For example, here that in the university apartments, you don't have to pay, you don't need a down payment, right, for university apartment, and you just have to apply early. Once you have your admissions early, apply early, so that you can actually get a place secured. For some schools, there are no university apartments at all. I know there is a university apartment at Columbia, the international housing, graduate student housing, but it's highly quantitative. And if you're the type that love big bed, don't even start considering that place. So,
But some schools don't have like university housing, like you said.
So schools don't have university housing that much, right?
What doesn't have. Right, so.
Yeah. So, but just like discussing with people, you could actually get cheaper options. So.
All right. Great. So yeah, I hope we're able to answer your question. I don't know the person that asked, but yeah, so that's it. Ebu, if you're on the call, please help me go through. Is there any other questions to respond to? All right.
I think.
So thank you.
I think I was asking about the mentorship call, from what I see.
Okay. Yes, so I was going want to mention that. All right, so this year, right, we're not having a separate application process for the mentorship program, the LAM program. So instead, we are just selecting from the application pool. So if you apply to join the class, the lane class, we select from within that pool, right? So what you should be doing is actually applying to join the lane class, the current class, and you can get the link to that on the bio, on our Instagram bio. So just go to the link in bio. Applying for MBA this year, I think that's the button to click on for that. Yeah. So I think that's it. If you have any other questions, if you want to join the lane community, just go to the link in bio or send us a DM. We'll always respond to you. Yeah, so is there anything else from your end? Anything you want to add, Ope Oladimeji?
I think the thing I have to say is, like I said, take it one step at a time. When you get to the next crossroads, you figure out how to go about it, and rely heavily on like your network, because they're the ones that are going to kind of pull you through each step for sure. And when in doubt,
absolutely, man. It's just a content what I said. This is a team sport, right? So it's a team sport. Isn't something you're supposed to go alone, right? So just make sure you join a community like Lane where you can actively learn from experiences of others and ways they are getting about things with this. You already say information look meaningful, so if you're ready to fly,
you like it, word.
Yeah,
all right. All right, thank you very much. So I think we've come to the end of the session. Thank you for joining, everyone. And if you know anybody applying for MBA this year, please just tell them about Lane. They can just come to our Instagram. The link is there on the bio to join the class. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for joining. Thank you very much, Oladimeji. Thank you, Ope, for joining.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.